Welcome to another Storytime Quickies of the Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. Now, this was a double feature linked up with the previous video, Storytime 67. This is going to be Tale 68, The Thief and His Master. So, make sure you go check out the previous one if you haven't already, because it kind of correlates a little bit. Maybe I might compare the two stories. Who knows? Go check it out. Go like it. Go comment. And also, go follow my Twitch. Uh, grab your blankies, grab your snackies, because it's time. Time for a quickie story. Tale number 67. The Thief and His Master. Hans wished to send his son to learn a trade. So he went into a church and prayed to our Lord God to know which would be most advantageous for him. Then the clerk got behind the altar and said, "Thieving! Thieving!" At this, Hans goes back to his son and tells him he is to learn thieving, and that the Lord God had said so. So he goes with his son to seek a man who is acquainted with thieving. Then they walked a long time and came into a great forest, where stood a little house with an old woman in it. Hans says, "Do you know of a man who is acquainted with thieving?" "You can learn that here quite well," says the woman. "My son is a master of it." So he speaks with the son and asks if he knows thieving really well. The master thief says, "I will teach him well. Come back when a year is over, and then if you recognize your son, I will take no payment at all for your teaching him. But if you don't know him, you must give me 200 talkers." The father goes home again, and the son learns witchcraft and thieving thoroughly. When the year is over, the father is full of anxiety to know how he is to recognize his son. As he is thus going about in his trouble, he meets a little dwarf who says, "Man, what ails you, that you are always in trouble?" "Oh," says Hans, "a year ago I placed my son with a master thief, who told me I was to come back when the year was over, and that if I did not know my son when I saw him, I was to pay 200 talkers. But if I did know him, I was to pay nothing. And now I am afraid of not knowing him, and can't tell where I am to get the money." Then the dwarf tells him to take a small basket of bread with him, and to stand beneath the chimney. There on the crossbeam is a basket, out of which a little bird is peeping, and that is your son. Hans goes there and throws a little basket full of black bread in front of the basket with the bird in it. Oh, Hans goes there and throws a little basket full of black bread in front of the basket with the bird in it. And the little bird comes out and looks up. "Hello, my son. Are you here?" says the father. And the son is delighted to see his father, but the master thief says, "The devil must have prompted you, or how could you have known your son?" "Father, let us go now," said the youth. Then the father and son set out homeward. On the way, a carriage comes driving by, and the son says to his father, "I will change myself into a large greyhound, and then you can earn a great deal of money by me." Then the gentleman calls from the carriage, My man, will you sell your dog? Yes, said the father. How much do you want for it? 30 talkers. Man, that is too much. But as it is such a very fine dog, I will have it. The gentleman takes it into his carriage. But when they have driven a little farther, the dog springs out of the carriage through the window and goes back to his father and is no longer a greyhound. They go home together. Next day, there is a fair in the neighboring town. So the youth says to the father, I will now change myself into a beautiful horse, and you can sell me. But when you have sold me, you must take off my bridle, or I cannot become a man again. Then the father goes with the horse to the fair, and the master thief comes and buys the horse for 100 talkers. But the father forgets and does not take off the bridle. So the man goes home with the horse and puts it in a stable. When the maid crosses the threshold, the horse says, Take off my bridle, take off my bridle. Then the maid stands still and says, What? Can you speak? So she goes and takes off the bridle off, and the horse becomes a sparrow and flies out at the door. And the master becomes a sparrow also and flies after him. Then they come together and cast lots, but the master loses and changes himself to a water and is to the water and is a fish. Then the youth also becomes a fish. They cast lots again, and the master loses. So the master changes himself into a cook, and the youth becomes a fox and bites the master's head off. And he died and has remained dead to this day. Wow. So that's crazy. I kind of lost myself a little bit into that story. It's kind of cool. So the point was that the father forgets to take the bridle off and he's stuck as a horse. And then he takes off the bridle, or he gets the maid to take off the bridle, and he turns into a sparrow and flies out the door. And the master becomes a sparrow also. So the guy that bought him was the master thief? I don't understand. When does the master come into play again? Beautiful horse you could sell me. Then the father goes into horse fair. Oh, then the father goes with the horse to the fair, and the master thief comes and buys the horse. So it's the master thief. That was kind of like a little quick line they threw in there. So the master thief is the one that buys the horse. They don't really explain if it's like willingly. Like, does the master thief know that he's buying the kid? And that's interesting to think about. Like, is because he knows witchcraft, is he the cause for the father forgetting to take the bridle off? They don't necessarily explain that, but it kind of leaves a little bit to the audience's imagination, right? Because like now you're left thinking like, oh, the son is kind of paying for his misdeeds in some way, because at the beginning of the first page of this tale, there's a little dwarf that hints into the father about like his son being the bird. Um, we don't know who that dwarf is, and who's to say that that wasn't the son actually disguised, informing the father about what's to come, so that he can basically get him for free. So there's a lot that's left open ended on this. Yeah, because yeah, they don't necessarily tell you about the what happens with the dwarf. He just kind of like disappears. The father goes over to the tree and gets the bird to come out, but like other than that, dwarf is never mentioned ever again. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, um it's there's no morality to this because they don't fully explain it to you. It's like you kind of dictate your own morality on this depending on like how you see the story, you know? Like if the son is the one that tricks the master thief, and is able to go with his father for free and like without paying and all that, um, then he's at fault. You know, it's his morality. But then it comes to bite him in the ass, where like he buys this horse who you don't know if he recognizes the horse. You know, you don't know if he knows that it's the son that he trained. Um, but then he tries to escape, and then the master goes chasing after him, only to end up dying. Uh, which again, depending on how you view the story, could be a morality story, you know, because like if he was intentionally bought that horse to keep the boy trapped as a horse, um you know, he's the one paying for his actions, whereas uh if he just kind of like bought the horse randomly without knowing, then there's no real point to his death other than the fact that he was just very, you know, he trained the son well, and that's about it. Kind of odd to think about. Good story though. I like that. A little bit of conflict in it, but it reminds me a lot of like Looney Tunes cartoons. You know, right? Because like, if you really think about this story, this is a Looney Tunes. Like the son is kind of like a Bugs Bunny character in a way. You know, things are happening to him, and he's kind of reacting to them. Um, and there's like, he's not necessarily a good guy. He's kind of more just like a trickster in the story, and he's reacting to things occurring to him with tricks. So it's a really interesting tale. It makes me want to explore a lot of kind of like Norse mythology, because like I always wanted to read about like stories revolving around Loki, because he's always considered like a mischievous god, uh and stuff like that. So like I really want to like read some of his tales, because I don't necessarily know too many, but like I'm kind of curious on like what exactly is it that makes him a mischievous god. And he's not the only mischievous god depicted in like history either. There's like so many too. Like if you go back to even what's the name of that religion? Basically with like Pan and stuff like that. I forgot what they're called, but it's like older religions than like Christianity and stuff like that. Um, it's like the old stuff, the old religions. But yeah. There's plenty of stories in there too, following like trickster gods. Um, but yeah, that concludes tale number 68. That was the thief and his master. Now, for next time, which is gonna be like a month away. Okay, so we're not gonna be reading this next tale until November, give or take. So just a heads up on that. There's gonna be a little pause on the Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. About a month pause for the month of October. We're gonna be doing short stories, scary stories, and stuff like that for Halloween and all that good stuff. So Grimm's will continue in November. We're gonna be starting off with Tale 69. Nice. Giggity. Jorinda and Joringel. So we'll get to that story in about a month. I know I'm leaving you guys with a little tease, a 69 tease. But that concludes the Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales for this month. I'll catch you guys on the next one. I hope to see you guys soon. Make sure you like, subscribe down below on this YouTube channel. And if you want to catch me live, it's twitch.tv/stigma XOXO. There should be links down below in the bio, so go check that out. And you know, if you want to see some like scary games or just like games in general, I'm gonna be playing with friends and stuff like that throughout the month. So go check that out. Um, Huge congrats to all you guys that are streaming out there too. You guys are breaking fucking records nonstop. Huge. Keep it up, you guys. And I'll see you guys out there. Later.